Chicken Coffee, and this morning, today, this episode is all about chicken picking. My approach to chicken picking. We have touched on this topic several times in the past, and we haven't really devoted a recent episode to chicken picking. Chicken picking to me is kind of more of a technique and less of a completely different set of specific skills. That's my best Liam Neeson impression. Chicken picking is kind of, if you think about music as a language, right? And I believe it is. Chicken picking is a dialect that has some things that are specific and unique to it, but really, once you kind of get this technique in your hands, you're going to be able to use all of your same blues licks, you know, any of your jazzy licks, any kind of lickery that you have committed to your hands on this instrument with a little bit of nudging in the right direction can become kind of a chicken picking lick. And so when it comes to chicken picking, it comes to that country sound, what are we really talking about? It is my observation that to make something sound country, you need to embrace the flat third to the major third, okay? And that little chromatic movement plus adding a dominant 7 tonal center to that instantly puts that into more of a rural setting, right? I didn't grow up playing country music. I didn't grow up playing bluegrass. In fact, every time I've ever attempted to play anything bluegrassy, my right hand almost immediately seizes, and I have to really calm myself down because that fast, fluid picking like a bow dancing over the strings of a violin, this doesn't come natural to me. And so when I started developing this chicken picking thing, I was coming from like a rock place where I was, you know, kind of always feeling behind the beat, right? And I had to really, and I still have to really work at this, right? So I'm going to show you my approach to it. So I'm going to get some coffee going, and we're going to start off looking at some thirds. I'm going to give you an exercise to practice, okay? And what I'm going to do first is I want to show you what's going on in the left hand on the neck of the guitar, and then we'll look at what's going on in the right hand, because there are two different things happening. Every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, we bring you a free guitar lesson with Chords and Coffee. These videos take time and money to create, and it's our free gift to you. All that we ask in return is that you leave comments on the videos and that you subscribe to this channel. When you do that, you make a massive difference in our ability to help to continue to have Chords and Coffee online for free. Thanks for being a part of this community, and thanks for watching. But the easy part is the left hand first. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in E, and my hope is that you can use this with some of the blues stuff that I gave you in the key of E. So here it goes. We're going to go G string, open G, first fret, use your index finger, and then we're going to play the open E string, the open high E. By the way, if you want your electric guitar to sound instantly more country chicken picking, get you a little slapback delay pedal. I'm just using this Boss Wazacraft. In fact, I have one of these on my board that is literally dedicated to this sound. I have the repeat rate cranked up. I have the intensity down just a little bit, and I have the echo, which is like the volume of the delay, down just a little bit. So the echo is barely, well, it's not there at all because it's off. But when I turn it on, you hear just a little, but kind of right after that. If you turn that up, you get kind of more of a rockabilly thing. If you leave it where it's at, it adds just a little bit of that kind of Sun Studio sort of sound, that kind of Memphis, you know, and Nashville kind of chicken picking thing. So anyway, open G, first fret of a G, and then high E. And then next we're going to take our middle and our ring finger and put it on the G string of the second fret with the middle, and then ring finger is going to be on the second fret of the high E. And then slide that up to 3 and 3, and then 4 and 4. And so that whole thing is. So that little chromatic movement, that is also very much to my ear. If I was dissecting what the Chicken Pickin dialect is, you need the flat third to the major third to the root, somewhere in there. You need a dominant 7 tonal center, which we'll get here in just a second. And then you need some of this chromatic movement. And then we're going to go to this A. You're going to go 5, 6, 1. Okay? And so 5, 6, 5. It's the root note, it's the 1. So 5, 6, 5, right? And so 5, 6, 5 on the high E, and the 5 and the 6 is on the G. So you're outlining these thirds again, and then you're going to do the exact same thing we did here, but you're going to do that on 7 and 7, 8 and 8, and 9 and 9. Right? And then you're going to do the same thing over the B. You're going to have 7, 8 on the G, and then the 7th fret of the high E, and then 9 and 9, 10 and 10, 11 and 11. So that whole thing is. And then I added this little thing at the very end just as a little way to kind of finish this exercise. Right? And that's a nice little first pedal steel bend. And so what you have here is you're going to have your pinky on the 12th fret of the high E, ring finger on the 12th fret of the B, and you're going to have your middle finger on the 11th fret of the G. And what I'm going to do is, if I just play just those notes there, it's kind of like a, like an E9 or an E add 9. But what I need to do is I need to bend this middle finger that's on the G string up to this note while holding down these guys. Now, the first time you do that, it may not sound good, it may not work out, but if you keep messing with that, where the physicality of it comes into play is I want to hold down, really I'm focusing my energy on holding down the pinky and the ring, keeping those steady, pushing down, and then I'm moving my middle finger up, and it's not, obviously the size of your strings does count, so if you're playing with 13s or something on your electric, this is going to be painful, friend. You're slicing cheese at that point, right? So what you want to do is you want to move that G up. These are probably 10s or 9s on here, and it gets easier with smaller strings. But as you're moving that G up, I'm also holding that low E, or I'm hitting that low E while holding all these at the same time. So the whole thing again. And practicing those bends and practicing getting that major third to actually sound in tune. And if you're having a hard time doing it with holding the pinky and the high E down on the E and the B string, just do the B and the G string. And that, you'll get it if you keep messing with it, all right? So don't give up if you don't get it the first time. It may take 15 times. And I can tell you from personal experience, sometimes it does. All right, so moving along. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a similar idea. By the way, you might be going, hold up, I thought you were going to talk about the right hand. Let's talk about that really quick. On your right hand, what I'm doing is I'm holding my pick with my thumb and my index finger, and then I'm plucking with my middle finger, okay? And this next exercise I'm going to give you, I feel like this will really, really help you kind of get that into your hands. What we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to take a quick drink of coffee. That's what I needed. On this next one, this is going to be very Scott Joplin, but this is going to help you get your right hand together, okay? So we're going to start way up here, and we're going to be on an E, and like I said, we're going to go E, A, B again to kind of keep all this stuff in the same key and hopefully usable in some tune that you come across. So you're going to go 11 on the G string, 11, 12, 13. Okay, now on this 11, 12, and 13, we're going to pick down, up, down. And I'm holding my pick with my thumb and my index. However you like to hold it is fine. The only problem is we're about to engage our middle finger. So if you hold it, Eddie Van Halen style or, Steve Morse, Jimmy Herring, that kind of thing, that might be a little problematic. So you might want to try to move it to more something like this, just for this world of chicken picking. So I'm going to go down, up, down, and then I'm going to pluck with my middle finger. And when I'm plucking with my middle finger, I'm just using just the tip, and I'm just almost just kind of curling underneath the string like that. So 11, 12, 13, down, up, down, and then on that high E, I'm plucking with my middle finger. This lick is in Keep Your Hands to Yourself, you know, The Entertainer, Scott Joplin. It's a very cliche lick, but this is a great place to start, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to play this thing 3 times and then end it with this little 13, 12, 13 on the G string, 12 on the high E. So just like that. And then we're going to move down here to the 5th fret, and I'm going to go 4, 5, 6 on the G string to the 5th fret of the high E. And again, down, up, down, and then high E, pluck. And then now I'm going to come up here to the B and do the exact same thing, 6, 7, 8, and then pulling up here on the high E string on the 7th fret. And again, I'm not playing the B string at all. I'm skipping that all together. And it's down, up, down, pluck. And so if you get that in your hands, the first time you do that, you might go, I don't know where I would use that or what that sounds like. Think of it as an exercise. Think of it as something that you're trying to get this together as much as you're trying to get this together. A lot of times as guitar players, and Lord have mercy, I am guilty of this, we end up spending too much time getting chords and things like that, and our rhythm is always kind of catching up to what our left hand is doing with chords. And I find that to be a common thing. I have to actually just, sometimes I'll just sit and play something like this mindlessly over and over and over again. In fact, if you're an adult and you're starting to play guitar, especially if you are, you know, my age, which I'm 49, so if you're in that kind of 50 zone, you might say, God, I wish I would have started this when I was a kid, and gosh, why didn't I do that? Shoulda, coulda, woulda, all that. The only advantage that starting really young has is that A, you have less responsibility, so therefore more time, and B, I feel like it's easier for a kid to convince themselves to do something mindlessly over and over and over again without seeing any return on investment immediately. And that thing we can get over. You know, that's something that doing an exercise like this, if you'll just get that in your hands for a while, you'll be surprised how quickly you'll start to pick this up. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, take another drink of coffee. Boy, that coffee's good this morning. It's got a little chew to it. A little too much. Woo! Anyway, all right, on this next one, we're going to add one technique and we're going to add one note. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go 12, 13 on the G string, and you're only going to pick down because you're actually going to hammer on. So use your index finger on the 12th fret of the G, and you're going to hammer on with the middle finger of the 13th fret of the G. And then on the 12th fret of the B string, right next door, you're going to pluck that with your middle finger. And when you look at the tab here, that P means pluck. That's what that means. And then we're going to come back to the 13th fret and pick down with the pick, and then pluck on the 15th fret of the B. Now, this is where having a little bit of staccato attack, so everything is really like quick. And it has sort of a built-in groove to it. That really helps. Now, let's do it on the A string, or on the A chord. Let's come down here to the 5th fret of the G, hammer on to the 6th fret of the G, and then pluck on the B string of the 5th fret, and then back to the 6th fret, pick, and then pluck on the 8th fret of the B. And you might notice on that hammer on, there's something kind of swampy and kind of sassy about delaying that. That's kind of fun. Now, if you're going to do it on a B, same kind of deal. Just move it up a whole step. We're going to be on the 7th fret of the G, hammer on to the 8th, and then pluck the 7th fret of the B, then back to the 8th of the G, and then on the 10th fret of the B. And the idea is I want to get this, you know, real tight sound. And again, I got my slap back on. Without the slap back, it sounds like. Didn't hit hard enough. I like it with the slap back, right? Again, we're trying to get this pluck and this pick working together, back and forth. So that's another exercise. Let me give you one more. Okay, so it's also really good as we are pursuing this idea of this third, specifically the flat third resolving to the major third. If you can find those up and down the neck, and they're all over the place. And in fact, this shape that we're messing with ends up being kind of a familiar shape, right? And so if I'm looking at just E, if I look at 3, 4, and then, so on the low E string, 3, 4, and then on the D string, 2nd fret, I'm skipping the A. If you've been watching Chords and Coffee episodes, you've heard me do this a lot, right? That right there is worth its weight in gold because you'll play that in a million different songs. I mean, it's if you listen to Voodoo Child, it's in there, kinda. It's also in a million different blues songs, but it's a very country thing to do too, right? And so that same thing also exists all over the neck. So here it is on the D string, 5, 6 on the D, and then on the B string of the 5th fret. And then maybe even down here on the 10th fret of the A, 10, 11, and then I'm gonna hit the 9th fret of the G. Well, what good is that? Well, I'm gonna tell you. What you wanna do is you want to practice pick, so down, up, or pick, hammer on, pluck. Pick, hammer on, pluck. That's probably what you wanna do. Or, yeah, I would do the pick, hammer on actually now that I feel myself. It's just another exercise for you to get that motion in your hands because that's what it's going to take. You're going to have to lift that weight for a while or, you know, I'm not the guy to talk to about health and fitness. However, I will tell you the more push-ups you do, the better your form gets and it's easier to do, okay? Let's move on to one more thing. Okay, this last thing I want to show you, this is more of an idea, but once you kind of get this concept in your hands and get friendly enough with it to where you can use it, it's a game changer. This is just an absolute game changer. So when we're talking about tonal centers, and if you're confused on that, comment below and I can direct you to some previous Chords and Coffee episodes where we at length discuss this concept of a tonal center. But real quick, it's just the idea of what kind of chord does this song ultimately resolve to. And in country, and honestly anything funky or bluesy or anything that's just got that kind of swampy, kind of hip kind of flair to it, it's a dominant 7 tonal center, 9 times out of 10, right? And so in a dominant 7 tonal center, if the greatest point of resolution, which is what tonal center is talking about, is a dominant 7 chord, which wants to be directed to resolve to a 1 chord somewhere, right? If the greatest point of resolution has built-in tension to it, you have more notes that are acceptable to the ear, okay? And in fact, I can't help it. I got to show you this thumbnail really quick. This is the dominant 7 tonal center episode. Please watch that. It's one of the favorite ones I've ever done. So it really explains this concept in detail. In this case, in a country kind of vibe or a chicken picking vibe, use your minor pentatonic blended with your major pentatonic, which is going to force you to learn a couple different pentatonic forms. So I'm going to give you a couple just to make this easy. If we're doing good old-fashioned E minor pentatonic, right here in this open position, what do we got going on here? Well, open E, on the low E, 3rd fret, and you can use your middle or your ring here. Doesn't matter, whichever one feels more comfortable. And then you're gonna have open A, 2nd fret of the A, open D, 2nd fret of the D, open G, 2nd fret of the G, open B, 3rd fret of the B, middle or ring. Doesn't matter. And then open E, and then 3rd fret of the E. Right? Now, if you think about E major pentatonic, which is the same thing as C sharp minor pentatonic, C sharp minor pentatonics down here, right? If I back all my pentatonic forms, and there's also an episode on that, and that thumbnail looks like this. I'm so sorry, Jordan, for all these edits. I love you. Okay, Jordan's the guy behind the camera. Anyway, if I back off and get all the way down here to the E major pentatonic, that's going to look like this. 2nd fret of the low E, 4th fret of the E, 2nd fret of the A, 4th fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D, 4th fret of the D, and then 1st fret of the G, 4th fret of the G, and then 2nd fret of the B, and then 5th fret of the B, and then 2nd fret of the high E, and then 4th fret of the high E. And what's interesting is that when you think about a lot of country licks, it ought to feel kind of familiar if you've messed around with that at all, down here on the low E, and that 2nd, 4th, 2nd, 4th, 2nd, 4th kind of plays for that E, the A, and the D string. And something else that's very chicken pickiny is when you get into that zone of the guitar. A lot of times when I'm hitting that, I'll pluck it with my pick, but then my middle finger will kind of come right behind it. And so pick pluck is happening almost instantaneously. And then if you put a little bit of a bend right there, so I'm going pick, pluck instantly. Almost like I'm trying to snap my fingers, but with my pick, and I'm just doing a terrible job at it, right? And then if you bend that string a little bit and release it, and then if you apply that technique all the way up, and that'd be a great thing to practice just right there, that 2-4, 2-4, 2-4. And then, remember what we first worked on at the very beginning of this? Add that kind of thing to it. All I'm really doing is I'm blending the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic together. Another way to make that blend even more special, or actually a little bit easier too, is that when you go to the 4 chord in the key of E, that would be the A, play that minor pentatonic over that and watch what happens, right? But you might say, well, that's great for down there. What about up here? Well, let's do that C sharp minor pentatonic. Starting on the 12th fret of the E, 12, 9, and then on B, 12, 9, and then on the G, 11, 9, and then on the D, 11, 9, on the A, 11, 9, and then 12, 9 on the low E. Now, let's add the minor pentatonic to that. And what does that look like? Well, that's going to be 10, 12 on the low E, 10, 12 on the A, and then 9, 12 on the D, and then 9, 12 on the G, and then 10, 12 on the B, 10, 12. By the way, we've already kind of flirted with this when we did that, right? So blending those two things together, I just wanted to give you that concept. That's also kind of like the next frontier, but what I would encourage you to do is to work on the right-hand technique of this, work on some of these exercises, and then as questions come to you, please put your questions in the comments. Let me know either what you're having trouble with, or maybe what I didn't explain very well. We're in this together, and man, every Saturday morning we are living life the best we can with a guitar in our hand. I thank you for watching this at 9 a.m. Central Time every Saturday morning on YouTube. Please share these videos. Please fill up the comments section with your comments. That's how we keep this thing going, and I sure do appreciate you. Y'all have a good rest of your day.